of our creation, the creation of our father, Adam alayhi salam. This is the enemy of Shaitan and his army and his descendants, who would seek at every turn to turn you away from reaching Jannah, turn you away from reaching our objective, turn you away from treading this path. And we need to know this, and we need to remind ourselves of this constantly, because Shaitan will attack you, and he will whisper to you, and his descendants and his those who help him, they will do the same and try to turn you away from this path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ إِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا وَلَا يَغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغَرُورُ. O people, indeed the promise of Allah is true. So do not let the worldly life deceive you, and do not let the chief deceiver deceive you regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. Verily, the shaitan is an enemy for you. So make him the enemy. He's an enemy. So treat him like an enemy. Don't treat him like a friend. Don't give in to the whispers and the inclinations that he gives to you. إِنَّمَا يَدْعُو حِزْبَهُ لِيَكُونُوا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيدِ. Because his purpose is that he calls his people and his tribe and his party so that they may follow him and become from the inhabitants of the blazing fire. This is his purpose. And this is his purpose when he requested and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَأَنظِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Give me respite until the day that they will be resurrected. So up until the creation of Adam alayhi salam, he's alive until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And his purpose, what is his purpose? He said, قَالَ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. He said, because you have deviated me, he's saying this to Allah, I will sit and I will prepare in ambush for them upon your right path. And we already know that there's only one path, and this path leads to Jannah, and this path is the path of knowledge. So then Shaitan will be there at every turn, at every minute, every second that you're on this path, he will be there ready in ambush. ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. Then I will approach them from in front of them, from behind them, from their right, from their left, and you will not find majority of them being grateful. You will not find majority of them acting upon the ni'am that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you, acting upon the knowledge that Allah has sent to His Anbiya, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and learning that knowledge. And you can see how big and how great a deceiver he is. You look at the story of Adam alayhi salam. He knew Adam was created by Allah, and he was in Jannah. And he knew, Allah told him that Shaitan is your enemy, do not be deceived. But what happened? The guile and the deception of Shaitan is great. And Adam alayhi salam fell. Like he succumbed to this. So his goal, so don't think that you're too knowledgeable or you're too mighty. If a prophet, Adam alayhi salam, can fall to the deception and the trickery of Shaitan, then we can also fall into it. So the solution to this is to remind ourselves of the goal of Shaitan. That he is not our friend. He only seeks to harm us. And majority of the things that I will list and I will mention, these are part of the deceptions of the Shaitan, if not all of them. And so whilst we remind ourselves, we should take him as the enemy, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. And we should take the means to take ourselves away from the traps and the ambushes of Shaitan. And this is only by looking to the Quran and acting upon the Quran, looking to the Sunnah and the authentic hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and acting upon them. Because Shaitan, again, his goal is to debase us, is to take us with him to the lowest steps of the hellfire. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raises the believers amongst you and those who have been given knowledge in ranks. So the people of knowledge, those who are seeking knowledge, those who have gained knowledge, those who are teaching knowledge, Allah raises them. Shaitan does not want that. Shaitan does not want that Banu Adam are being raised. He wants to debase them just like he's been debased, and he wants to lower them just like he's been lowered. And he wants to be, so that we can be with him. So knowledge raises the ranks of a person. So of course his attention will be more towards the ones who are seeking this heighty, this loftiness, seeking the knowledge, the sacred knowledge. And so he will attack you even more. So we should know the many problems and the issues and the hurdles and the obstacles that the shaitan brings. And we should always seek the refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And make a dua that Allah does not allow us to deviate through that. Within that ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also mentions, so another issue in regards to a hurdle and an obstacle from learning knowledge and gaining the benefit of knowledge is the dunya. فَلَا تَغُرَّنَّكُمُ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا. Do not let the worldly life deceive you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. That gaining more and more of the dunya has turned you away, meaning has neglected you from your purpose, from worship of Allah, from seeking the knowledge, and from trying to attain Jannah. But people's focus is mainly upon the dunya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُلْهِكُمْ أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. O you who believe, do not let your wealth and your children turn you and divert you from the remembrance of Allah, meaning the religion, the knowledge. وَمَا يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. And whoever does so, then these are the losers, these who lose out upon the benefits and the reward in al-akhirah. So the dunya, when you're seeking the dunya, people, they turn away from the religion, they turn away from seeking the knowledge. The main focus is to get a business, to get a job, to get a high salary, so that they can enjoy their life. And it doesn't occur to them to seek knowledge. So they give maximum amount of time towards the dunya. And they give the little amount of time, if any, to seeking knowledge. So this is one of the major obstacles of a Muslim, that they become distracted with the matters of the dunya. They become distracted with wealth, with gaining matters of the dunya, and they forget about the matters of the akhirah. So the solution is to remind oneself, what is the difference between al-akhirah and the dunya? The dunya is fine. It will end. And it is meager in quality in comparison to the akhirah. How long is a person going to live in the dunya for? You will work 10, 20, 30 years to get a house, to get a car. And then after that, what then? And then you die. At the age of 60, 70. Then what then? But if a person acts for the akhirah, and he does it whilst he is young, and he continues to do it until he passes away, so he seeks knowledge all throughout that time, and he benefits from that, then the akhirah is there for infinity, it is there for eternity, and he will benefit from that forever. Whereas once he passes away, the dunya is gone. Anything that he yearned for, anything he striven for, or strove for, is gone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قُلْ مَتَاعُ الدُّنْيَا قَلِيلٌ وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. That the gains of the dunya are very little, and the akhirah is better for the ones who has taqwa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, regarding the Sahaba, like some of the Sahaba, it was mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ was given a khutbah and they saw some trade or a caravan coming. وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً أَوْ لَهْوًا انْفَضُّوا إِلَيْهَا وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا. And whenever they saw, or when they saw trade or lahu, something pleasurable, they would run towards it and they would leave you standing. قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ. Say, that which is with Allah is better than any of this and from the business. وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. And Allah is the best of those who provide. So a person should remind himself that if he strives and he forgets, if he strives for the dunya and he forgets al-akhirah, then he should remind himself that whatever he is striving for is little in comparison to the dunya, to the akhirah, and that which Allah has. So if he dedicates more time towards seeking knowledge, then he knows that which is with Allah is better than if he were to spend time towards the dunya. Now, of course, a person should not forsake the dunya completely. He should search for the rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the problem is that so many people, they dedicate so much time in the matters of the dunya, in trying to get a business, in trying to get a higher job, that they become tired and they become so work related that they forget about seeking knowledge, they forget about reciting Quran, they forget about coming to the masjid for salah. And so then they have preferred the dunya over the akhirah, and that's the major problem. That's the problem that a lot of people have. They prefer the dunya over the akhirah. But if you seek knowledge and you dedicate some of your time towards knowledge, then bi'idhnillahi ta'ala you will also enjoy the rewards of al-akhirah and also the dunya. Another hurdle and obstacle that a person can be involved in, which is related to what I just mentioned, is the lack of time because of work, because of responsibilities, because of school. How many times a person comes back from school and he says, I'm tired. There's a lecture going on, I say, I'm tired, I don't want to go there. Or he comes back from work and he says, I'm tired, I don't want to, I just want to rest. Or that he says that he has got a lot of responsibilities and he can't dedicate some of the time towards attending lectures, towards attending the classes of knowledge and learning Islam and the ilm. Then he should remind himself, or you should remind them, that who were the Sahaba? They were also human beings. They also had work. They also had families. They also had responsibilities. Did that stop them from learning the religion? Did that stop them from seeking the knowledge? But they found time. Why? Because they gave a preference towards seeking knowledge. They gave a preference towards the religion. It's not like the Sahaba were just sitting in the masjid or sitting next to the Prophet ﷺ constantly. Only few, like Ahlul Suffah, because they were poor, they were in poverty, they didn't have any wealth, they didn't have any families, they didn't have any businesses. And so they would be with the Prophet ﷺ, like Abu Hurairah, and that's why he narrated the most hadith. But Abu Bakr or Umar, were they constantly with the Prophet? No, they also had families, they also had responsibilities, but they still dedicated some of the time to the Prophet ﷺ. And we look towards Umar radiallahu anhu. And he mentioned that he had a neighbor from the Ansar, and they basically had an arrangement that one day, he stays and he does work and the jobs, and then the neighbor, he goes to the Prophet ﷺ and he learns, and then he tells Umar what happened during that day and the knowledge that he learned. And then the next day Umar radiallahu anhu would go, and the Ansari, he would stay and he would do the work and the jobs. And they would do that every day, alternate. And so if you can see the way that the Sahaba did, then we can also try to find solutions to get this time. Maybe we're not able to do it like every day. Like Umar radiallahu anhu, he wasn't with the Prophet every day, but still he found a way. He found arrangements, a schedule that fitted the responsibilities he had, the work that he had, so that he can still benefit from the Prophet ﷺ, he can still benefit from the knowledge. So there is no excuse for anyone really to say, oh, I have work, I have responsibilities. No, it's because you haven't dedicated yourself, you haven't committed yourself towards the knowledge. Otherwise, just like the Sahaba, you would find that. You would find a solution within your own schedule to seek knowledge. Another hurdle and obstacle that a person will have while seeking knowledge is that you will be tested. You will be tested and you will be trialed, and it will not be easy for you. Seeking knowledge, again, a person will be tested. And the Prophet ﷺ, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, he asked, O Rasulullah, ayyun nas, ashaddu balan, that who are the ones who are more severely tested? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Anbiya thumma al-amthal fal-amthal. فَيُبْتَلَى الرَّجُلُ عَلَى حَسَبِ دِينِهِ. That it is the Anbiya, the prophets, who are the more severely tested amongst mankind, then the ones who are nearest, and then the ones who are nearest. And a man will be tested according to the status of his religion. And we know in another hadith, إِنَّ الْعُلَمَاءَ وَرَثَةُ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ, that the ulama, they are the inheritance of the Anbiya. So after the Anbiya, who are going to be tested the most? The ulama, the scholars. And also, before you're a scholar, you're a student of knowledge. So the students of knowledge, they will be tested many times. And there are many, many incidents and occasions within the Salaf, how many of the ulama, and whilst they were also students, how much they went through. Some of them were imprisoned, some of them went through famine, some of them went through drought, some of them were punished. But still they strove, still they sought knowledge, and still they claimed the status of alim, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Because they focused on knowledge, they committed themselves. And despite the trouble, they knew they were going to get tested, because every Muslim gets tested. But just like the ulama, just like the prophets and the ulama before them, and also the students of knowledge, despite being imprisoned, despite being criticized, despite being rejected, laughed upon, ostracized, they still sought knowledge, they still wanted to benefit. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to do that. So the solution is to have patience and sincerity for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And remind oneself that this is a test. And the whole dunya is a test. And the more you are tested, the more sabr you have, the more reward you will get. In Surah Al-Asr, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. That you enjoy, at the end, you enjoy one another with patience. So whilst in the path of knowledge and seeking knowledge and giving da'wah and also teaching, a person should enjoin with patience. He should also have patience within this, because he will be trialed and tested upon this path. Another hurdle is that a person's sincerity can go up and down. Like initially, if a person, he seeks knowledge for the sake of Allah, but whilst he is seeking knowledge, something might happen. Again, the shaitan or outer things. So that person's sincerity is then put into doubt. And we know the sin, the great sin of riya and showing off and not doing it for the sake of Allah. And we know of the hadith that 3 men, one of them is a person who learned knowledge, and people called him alim, and he learned the Quran. And then he was brought before Allah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that, what did you do? And then he said, I learned knowledge and I taught it and I read Quran for your sake. And then Allah will say, kadhabt, that you have lied. However, you learned knowledge so that people could call you alim, and you read the Quran so that people can call you qari, and people did say that, and it was said. And then that person will be thrown into the hellfire. So you can see how grave insincerity is within a person's while seeking knowledge or teaching knowledge. So a person should always keep on top of his sincerity and keep on top of his intention, that it should only be solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, مَا عَالَجْتُ شَيْئًا أَشَدُّ عَلَيَّ مِنْ نِيَّتِي, that I did not try to cure anything more severe and more hard and difficult upon me than my niyyah. إِنَّهَا تَتَقَلَّبُ عَلَيْهِ, that it used to change for me all the time. So even a great imam like Sufyan al-Thawri, he had trouble with his sincerity. And it happens, like some people, you seek knowledge and then people will come to you. Like if they realize that you've learned a little bit of knowledge or you got an ijazah and something, they will come to you. Then you might think to yourself, hey, I might be a bit of a big person. So then sincerity might come into you and doubt can come into you. And then you might do it just so that people can come to you and say, oh, this person is so knowledgeable. This person gives me more benefit. And you're doing it for praise. And you're doing it for fame. Or there comes a job opportunity and then it's not really for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're just doing it for more and more money, and you're not doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that you're only looking to get more pay. So you go to another person and say, oh, look, I've taught this, what are you going to give me? And then if they're not going to give you the amount of money that you think that you deserve, then you're going to reject them and go for the more money, rather than with your intention being for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So sincerity again, a person should keep on check upon it. And this is why the ulama, they advise everyone to always renew in your intention. Tajdeedun niyyah, that every time, as much as possible, if every day, every lesson if you have to, you remind yourself who you're doing it for. Why are you doing it for? You're seeking this knowledge. Is it for people? Is it for money? Is it for the dunya? Or is it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reward that He gives to you? And then you also look at the ahadith and the ayat that talk about the harms of being insincere and the harms of doing it for riyah and for show and praise of other people. And then you remind yourself, and this is why ahadith are there. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned all these and you go over them. You just don't learn it one time, you go over it. Even though you know it and it's in your head, but you have to go over it so that it then has the effect again. Because the effect, it goes away again because of other issues, or because of the whispers of the shaitan or so on and so forth. So you remind yourselves of the harms of being insincere and the benefits of being sincere and the reward that comes with it. That way, inshaAllah ta'ala, a person can keep on top of his intention and his sincerity when seeking knowledge. Another hurdle, an obstacle that a person may face is the issue of who to learn the knowledge from, and making sure that you don't follow deviant individuals or deviant sects. A person might think that he's learning the religion, when in reality all he's doing is gaining sin upon sin, because he's going against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And they say, oh, this is a book, this is knowledge. But they don't say, قال Allah, قال Rasul, alayhi salatu wasalam. Rather, they would say from their own selves. And so, if a person is not on top of that, then he will be deceived. And he's thinking he is a student of knowledge, where in reality, he'll be a student of bid'ah and other stuff. And Muhammad ibn Sirin, rahimahullah, said, "Inna hadha al-ilm deen," talking about hadith, that this religion is, this knowledge is religion. This is your religion. Seeking knowledge is religion. فَانظُرُوا عَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُوا دِينَكُمْ. So see and look who you're taking your religion from. So a person should always look at that person who is speaking, the da'i or the lecturer or the alim. What is their aqidah? What do they call upon? Do they say قال Allah, قال Rasul, or do they say, oh, my sheikh said this, or that they give their own opinion and they don't have it backed up by any of the opinions of the ulama or the salaf or Quranic statements and hadith. So a person should focus only what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, and what the ulama of the Salaf said. That way, if a person is quoting the Quran and is quoting the Hadith and he's not interpreting it from himself, rather he's also quoting and backing it up with statements of the Salaf and also from amongst the contemporary scholars, those who have the right Aqidah, then you can take from such a person. Otherwise, if you see a person and he only talks about his own opinion and he says, oh, I think about this and I think this is this and I think that is that, and he does not back it up with the Quran and he does not back it up with authentic hadith or the statements of the ulama, then know that you shouldn't take from this person. And most likely this person will be calling you towards deviance. So the solution is to see those who call and they say قال الله قال Rasul, the book of Allah and the authentic hadith, whilst also backing it up with the statements of the Salaf. Another hurdle and obstacle that a person will want to overcome is many times when someone is seeking knowledge, they're thinking about the end goal straight away. They're thinking, oh, I'm going to become the Hafiz al-Quran. And they forget about the journey and the difficulties that goes within it and how much commitment that you put in it. So then after 1 month or 2 months, they're looking at you and say, oh, I already memorized 1 juz. I've got 29 juz left. How am I going to reach that? And they just want to rush. They just want to learn it in one go. Or they want to learn a knowledge or a book in one sitting. And it's not possible to do that. Especially if you want the knowledge to stay within you, it's not possible to do it in 1 sitting or 2 sittings. You have to do it over many sittings, over many days and months and years even. And so one of the deceptions of the shaitan and also an issue and a hurdle of a student of knowledge is not to rush or not to think that you're going to learn it straight away. Or you're going to become a Hafiz al-Quran in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. Or you're going to study a book and become a master of that book within a month or 2. It takes time and it takes commitment and dedication. So you have to be reasonable and you have to look and dedicate that time and know what is possible within your own means and within your own ability. Ibn Shihab az-Zuhri, rahimahullah, he said, do not strive to surpass knowledge, for knowledge is like the river basins. Whichever of them you set after you, it will cut you off before you can reach it. Rather, you must take it with the passage of days and nights. Like you can't just take it all together. You have to take it slowly, by time. And you must not take knowledge all at once, for indeed, whoever seeks to attain it all at once, it will leave him all at once. Again, it will not be embedded in your heart. You might have a lecture or a lesson, and you've probably already experienced this, that a person or an alim, a scholar, they would study a book for 1 day and you learn it. But if you don't go over that, what you've learned over the next days, and you just learnt in 1 day, you're going to forget it. Or it's going to go from your mind. So again, you can't just learn it in 1 sitting. You can't just learn it in 1 day. You have to go over it, you have to revise it, you have to do it slowly so that it can keep within your heart. And again, this is a problem for many people. They have this idea that they want to learn Arabic, but then they're not willing to give the years to it. They think they can learn Arabic within 1-2 months. And when they realize they're being too slow or they're not reaching what they have an unreasonable objective, then they just leave it altogether. Similarly, Hifdul Quran, they leave it altogether. Oh, I've just only memorized this amount and there's so much left. How am I going to memorize it? And they just want to do it in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So they just give it up altogether. So if one can be reasonable, if one can just be consistent and give dedication towards it, then yes, it might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But if you haven't stopped and you keep on going, then bi-idhnillahi ta'ala you have reached your goal. Otherwise you have these people who start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. You're never going to gain it. Because you stopped it, and then again it comes to you, oh, I want to learn Arabic. I want to memorize Quran. But then you revise what you've already forgotten the last time, and then again you stop because it's become difficult, it's too long, and it just keeps going on and going. So again, this is a great hurdle. A person should keep consistency upon it, and not rush, and have patience within it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَحَبُّ الْأَعْمَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلَّ. That the more beloved deeds towards Allah is the ones that a person is consistent upon, even if it is a little. Because he's doing it no matter what. If a person did a lot in one day, and then he gets tired, and then he leaves it for a whole week, and then maybe he doesn't go back to it, or he goes back to it, but then if you look at it as a whole, he hasn't done that much, even though he did a lot in one day. But if a person did a little every single day, and you compare it to that person who would just do it in chunks and then miss out large periods of time without doing anything, then you will see he would have improved more, greater than that other person. Because again, that other person might have forgotten what he learned, and then he has to revise, and then he has to learn more. Whereas the person who is consistent, and he comes every day towards the masjid, comes every day, goes over his revision, goes over his memorization, then you will see him being more, and he'll progress even more, and he'll have it within his heart even more than the person who just learnt it in one day, a huge chunk, and then forgot it, and then tried to relearn it, and then he just goes upon that. So consistency is key within this. Another one thing that affects many people is laziness and boredom. When it comes to the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one shouldn't be lazy. One shouldn't think, oh, let me just rest one day. Because this isn't a time for resting. You can rest in Jannah. You can enjoy the rewards in Jannah. This is a time of amal. This is the time of doing work and working hard and doing sa'i, like exerting yourself. And so a person should not be lazy. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he would make dua, and he will encourage people to make dua to seek refuge from being lazy. Like one of the traits he would seek refuge from is being lazy. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasl wal-jubni wal-harmi wal-bukhl wa a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr wa min fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat. That he would seek refuge with Allah from these traits, and one of them is being lazy. Because once you're being lazy, you're not doing anything. Like when you're lazy, you don't work towards dunya, you don't work towards akhirah. So you're not benefiting anything. So what is only going to harm you. So a person should not be lazy when it comes to seeking knowledge, and he shouldn't be bored either. Of course, not everyone is a dedicated student of knowledge that he can spend 24/7 and all his life is about studying. And of course, the teacher or the lecturer, he should look towards the habits and the way that the people are. If they are working hard and they come back, then you should limit that time and you should only give them a little bit. But those who are dedicated, then they should not be bored. They should look towards the books that they're studying, and they should enjoy that it's a lot. They should enjoy that it's more. So the more dedicated a person is in seeking knowledge, then the less he should be bored about reading all these large volumes of books of knowledge. And Imam Nawawi, he criticized many of the students of knowledge who would get bored by reading the shuruhat and all these things that will benefit him and give him more knowledge. So the student of knowledge, the dedicated one, he should never be bored from learning any type of knowledge within the deen. But like I mentioned, For those who have jobs and work and whenever they do dedicate some time to the seeking knowledge, then you should give it according to what they can receive. Just like the Prophet ﷺ, he would give every Thursday, and Ibn Mas'ud would say, I would do, or one of the Sahaba, they would say, I would do what the Prophet ﷺ would do. Like do it every day so that people don't get bored. And this is only again for those who have work and jobs. Another hurdle is when a person, and one of the deceptions of shaitan, is when a person sees someone else succeeding and learning and progressing more, and maybe it's because he's working more harder than you and he's giving more time than you. Wallahu a'lam. Anyway, you see that person and you look at that person and he's increasing more and more, or that you see someone who's already achieved a certain amount of knowledge, and then you become despondent by yourself and you think, how can I reach that? And it deters you from learning more because you're thinking, I won't be able to reach that way, or I won't be able to progress that much. Rather, it should give you himmatul ali, it should give you a high aspiration, it should encourage you to do even more. And a Muslim, whenever he sees someone doing good in khair and goodness, then he would want to be good in khair and goodness as well. And he would rather compete. فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ. You should be competing in righteous deeds. Of course, with your sincerity intact, for the sake of Allah, but you should be competing rather than become despondent. And then a person looks to someone who's progressing more, and then he says, I'm not going to be able to reach that, and then he just leaves the knowledge altogether, and he just leaves memorizing Quran or whatever altogether. Rather, he should be looking to gain that which that other person gained. And inshallah, I should encourage him to work hard and commit more time and dedicate himself more. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا حسد إلا فتنتين, that there is no hasad, jealousy, except within two people, that is allowed. رجل آتاه الله مالا فسلطه على هلكته في الحق, that a man whom Allah gave wealth to and then he puts it to destruction, meaning that he gives it all away for the sake of Allah, fil haqq, in righteousness, in truth, meaning for the religion and sadaqah. He would just, whenever he would get wealth, he would spend it for the sake of Allah. So if a person sees that person, then he would want to do that, and he would want to be same in that regard. وَرَجُلٌ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ حِكْمَةً فَهُوَ يَقْضِي بِهَا وَيُعَلِّمُهَا, and a man whom Allah gave hikmah and wisdom and knowledge, and he judges with it and he teaches through it. So this hasad, the ulama mentioned, is not the hasad that is mazmoom, which is blameworthy, where a person would want that ni'mah or that trait from that person to be removed completely, even though he would not have it. So this is the hasad which is not allowed. But they mention that this hasad is ghibta, which is that you would want that what that person has. And so this is what we should have, this kind of hasad, this kind of ghibta, that whenever you see someone who is progressing more, then you want to progress like him. Whenever he has been given a lot of knowledge, you want to learn more knowledge like him. And you wouldn't want that ni'mah to go away from him, but rather you want that ni'mah also with you. So this is the mentality of a Muslim, that you should have this ghibta and this hasad, the halal hasad, which is mentioned in this hadith. And in another narration, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, رَجُلٌ عَلَّمَهُ اللَّهُ الْقُرْآنَ فَهُوَ يَتْلُوهُ آنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ وَآنَاءَ النَّهَارِ, that a man whom Allah taught the Qur'an and he would recite it in the hours of the night and the hours of the day. فَسَمِعَهُ جَارٌ لَهُ, then a neighbor of him would hear, فَقَالَ لَيْتَنِي أُوتِيتُ مِثْلَ مَا أُوتِيَ فُلَانٍ, that he would say, oh, I wish that I was given just like that the fulan was given, the man was given. فَعَمِلْتُ مِثْلَ مَا يَعْمَلُ, so then I would act according, just like he would act. So this is the mentality that a person should have. Not the hasad where you think that that person shouldn't have it altogether. Rather, the hasad and the ghibta that you should have it and you should want it and you should aspire to gain it. And when you have that mentality, then you would, dedicate your time, you would work hard and you would have that effort. Rather than becoming despondent and saying, oh, I won't be able to reach that level, so I'll just leave it altogether. So this is why the ulama, the hadith where it says, "Unduru ila man huwa asfala minkum," look towards those who are lesser than you, meaning in the matters of the dunya. In that which Allah has given you, don't look towards those who have been given more than you, because then فَهُوَ أَجْدَرُ أَلَّا تَزْدَرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Then it is more likely that you do not belittle the ni'mah that Allah has given you. So in matters of dunya, you should look towards those who are lower than you. But the ulama say, when in matters of al-akhirah and ilm, you should look towards who are higher than you, so that it can give you inspiration and encouragement to do more and learn more. Another issue and hurdle is that when you're not learning knowledge, and the more knowledge you have, the more a person might feel great about himself. As people will start coming to you asking questions, masail, and then you would give them and they say thanks, jazakallah khair, and you go, and then you'll be a bit happy, and then some pride might come into you. Knowledge should be gained for the sake of Allah, and knowledge should increase a person in humility. But many a times this knowledge can be a form that a person would take a pride in, and he will look down upon the people. And he would think that he's better than Fulan because of this knowledge, without knowing or without realizing that kibr has gone into his heart, that he's looking down upon these people. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned the definition of kibr, and he said, بَطُلُ الْحَقِّ وَغَمْتُ النَّاسِ, that rejecting the truth and looking down upon the people. So if a person does this, when in reality he should be humble, then the knowledge is not benefiting him. Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, he mentioned the worst type of arrogance, and he said that the worst type of arrogance is the one who is arrogant towards the people because of his knowledge, and who considers himself great because of his virtue. And this person's knowledge will not benefit him, because whoever seeks knowledge for the sake of the hereafter, he will be humbled by his knowledge. His heart would be submissive, his soul will be humbled, and he will be on guard against himself, never neglecting it, but rather holding himself accountable at all times. And some wise people said that al-mutakabbiru kas-sa'idi fawqa al-jabal, that the arrogant person is like the one who is climbing the mountain and he's near the top. يَرَى النَّاسَ صِغَارًا, he would see the people small and little. وَيَرَوْنَهُ صَغِيرًا, and they would see him to be small and little. So in reality, when you think you're big and mighty and you're looking down on people, with that, the people will look down upon you. And what was the sin and the trait which banished Iblis and damned Iblis? It was nothing but kibr. Because he had knowledge, he knew about Allah, he knew about Adam, he knew about the Malaika. And did that benefit him at all? No. And what destroyed all of his deeds? Because it was said that he was one of the closest, he was within the assembly of the angels. It was kibr. فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. That all the angels, they prostrated because of the command of Allah, except Iblis. He rejected and he was arrogant, too arrogant to do this. And he became from the disbelievers. So, the solution is to be humble, to lower yourself for the sake of Allah, knowing that you're only doing it for the sake of Allah. This knowledge is not a means for you to be proud, but is a means for you to be humble. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَمَا تَوَاضَعَ أَحْدٌ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. There is no one who is humble for the sake of Allah except Allah will raise him. And you will see the ones who have been praised and mentioned and commended are the ones who are the most humble. And the ones who show this arrogance and who show this looking down upon people, they are criticized, and they are people, they don't take from them. Another one is not having adab. So the lack of adab, which will deprive a person of the barakah of the knowledge and the blessings and the reward within the knowledge. This is why many of the ulama of the Salaf, and even today, they would seek adab and learn adab before they would even seek the knowledge. Some of them would spend years learning adab and how to behave within the class, how to behave with the Quran, how to behave within the masjid. And then after that they would learn the Quran, they would memorize, they would recite, they would learn the knowledge. So lack of adab is can deprive a person of many of the benefits and the barakah within learning knowledge. And the ulama have written so many kutub upon adab. And like Imam Bukhari has got Kitab al-Adab, and also other ulama. Another deception or a hurdle is being shy. There is haya al-mamduh, which is praiseworthy, which will take a person away from evil deeds and immorality. But then there is also al-haya madhmum, where a person, he is too shy to attend the masjid, or he is too shy to learn knowledge, things that are obligatory. This is when the haya or al-khajal, shyness, becomes madhmum, that is haram for a person to be like this. So he should force himself if he has to, and he should remind himself the importance of seeking knowledge, and the importance of attending the masjid, and the importance of reading the Quran within the gathering, within the masjid. And he should constantly remind himself of the benefits, and he should constantly remind himself of the harms if he does not do so. And make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it makes it easy for him to attend, so that he is not deprived of this and that he does not incur the sin. And inshallah he can overcome this shyness, even though he'll still have it, of course, but at least he's learning the religion, he's learning the mandatory ilm. And finally, some people, they think age, like you reach a certain age, you stop knowledge, you stop seeking knowledge, you don't attend the halaqat, or you don't attend the lectures, or you don't attend having lessons. And they think you reach age of 30 or 40 and it's too hard, it's too difficult. It should never be like this. Even those who are already ulama, they would still sit down and they would listen to other ulama giving lessons. Those, especially Ahlul Hadith, they would write books, but still they would go to a sheikh and they would listen hadith from them. And many ulama like Fudail, he started older, he started in his 20s. He didn't start when he was at 10. He was a corrupt person before. He was a highway robber. And then, by the ni'mah of Allah, he turned away from that and he sought knowledge, and he became one of the great ulama. Also Ibn Hazm, he started at the age of 26. And some ulama started at the age of 30. See, they started, not like they've learnt it, they started at this age, like dedicating themselves to it. So a person should not think that because of this age that he should stop knowledge. Maybe he won't be able to dedicate it 24/7 or a majority of his time, but at least he should give some time to seeking knowledge. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, was very old, and he would teach, and people would say at this age, and he would say, "Ana ma'al mahbarati ila al-maqbara," that I am with the ink pot until the grave, that I will constantly learn, I will constantly teach until I die. And that should be the mindset of every single person. When seeking knowledge, it's not that you reach an age of 25, or you say that you have a child and then you stop and you don't attend the lectures, you don't attend the lessons. Rather, it should be continuing at the age of 30, 40, 50, up until one passes away. So inshallah, these are some of the hurdles that a person will go through or can go through when seeking knowledge. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us, because the main important thing when trying to overcome these obstacles and these tests is that we seek aid from Allah, because we cannot do it from ourselves. We seek aid from Allah, we seek refuge with Allah, and we make dua to Allah constantly whilst fighting all of this and whilst taking all the solutions and the advice from the hadith and the scholars in regards to overcoming all these ailments and these hurdles. Because the main thing, who can take it away? It's not us by ourselves, it's not fulan, it's not shaykh, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so a person should always resort to making dua to Allah to take away all these hurdles. So if he finds himself in a difficult situation, whether it is in seeking knowledge or whether it is in matters of the dunya, then he should return to Allah and make tawbah to Allah, istighfar, and make dua to Allah, and bi'idhnillah ta'ala He will alleviate it from you. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك جزاكم الله خير.